You're watching Crux of the Matter, viewers. Politics might split us all into a million hues, but not cricket. Cricket unites us like perhaps the only other entity or value system that unites us, and that is the Constitution. For many, cricket really is a constitution. So viewers, today we're going to spend a little time talking about India's what appeared to be waning test fortunes. India is having a poor run of it in test cricket, but it's taken a tour down under to fully reveal the team's frailties in the longer version of the game. There will be some who disagree and suggest that it's only a temporary blip, but there are certain patterns that are beginning to emerge, and we need to begin to focus on them. Of course, the series is now pretty much at a point where the two teams look, at least on paper, evenly balanced, having split the first two tests, the third being washed out. So you're really in the middle of it all, two to go. And it's not just the series, the Border Gavaskar Trophy to play for, it's also an opportunity to make it to the finals of the World Test Championships. India has made it there pretty much every year, but this time looking a little shaky unless we really are able to set the pieces right. Now, is it just a matter of technique, or is there something graver that is eating away at Indian Test cricket? Let's talk about that to three individuals who know more about this game than a number of us, because not only have they been very closely involved, some have even played it. So let's go across to Ayaz Memon, Atul Vasan and Charu Sharma, all household names, need no introductions, quite frankly. Let me begin with you first, Atul Vasan. Of course, the news from the series got a bit overshadowed because one of our legendary greats, second highest wicket taker for India, man on your screens, decided to hang up his boots. There's a lot of controversy around that. His father has come out and said that perhaps he got a very raw deal, etc., etc. But a quick comment, really, on Ashwin first, before we move on.
Actually, there are two things. First, in jest though, that everybody in India, when they go ranting and raving. Nobody has said that, they asked, when rather than why. But this is something about the air in Australia. Some germ or some virus is there because, we go to Australia and somebody retires in the middle of the series. And this is shocking for me. And I think if he has retired, if he, because of not being picked, then he should come out with it, because he's very forthright, this guy. What he has done is, there. I don't want to burden the debate. We all know how great he is. But the way he goes and all the, the timeline that he spoke to Rohit and, this thing, and middle of the series, I think he should have carried on, because I would have respected him, because you don't leave the team down. One for all and all for one is the motto. And in Australia especially, if he's miffed, then I'll be very, very upset that he has just, chucked it in and come back home.
Okay. Charu Sharma and Ayaz Memon. Charu Sharma first, yeah.
What about Ashwin?
Yes.
Yeah, it does seem a little strange. It was very sudden. But let's not pretend that he's only 24. I mean, he's 38. And there was, time was almost on call. And he, sometimes these things hit you a little suddenly. Now, we can't read what's in his mind, but there's no question that he didn't go away smiling and hugging everybody. He left the very next day. He reached India and it's sort of all over. I'm done. I'm dusted. So there was some element of enough now. Now, is that enough? Partly because he's played a lot after all, and partly because there was probably a very strong sign that he's not going to be picked for the next couple of tests as well. And there was a replacement, much younger, not doing too badly with the ball or with the bat. So Ashwin might well have said, what about hanging around here? I mean, I'm not really here to be fetching water into the ground or whatever other duties, 13, 14, 15 men do. So it was just a coming together, maybe a straw that broke the camel's back. Whatever it is, it's, let's not pretend that and Ashwin will never come along, because, players are replaced by others. He did very well. I think he was a complete player. He did very well with the bat as well. And let's not forget his leadership skills, which of course he wasn't granted for the Indian team because he's a very, very clever man in terms of strategy and tactics. So he was underutilized, that's for sure. And yet he got those huge bucket full of wickets for India. Now, in Australia, it was quite likely he's not going to do much better because of that one test he played, but he didn't do too well at all. And he must have said, okay, enough. My body's telling me enough. My captain's not really for me. There are plenty of reasons. I should just go. Should he have stayed the other two tests and just hung around the dressing room? Well, sometimes a very senior player says, I'm not built for that anymore.
Yeah, and I suppose apathy also rubs off and so forth. So there's that element. Ayaz Memon, quick one on Ashwin. Kapil Dev says perhaps he didn't get the send-off he deserved.
Well, I didn't, Rahul, I don't think he was there for the send-off. I mean, he retired abruptly. This was a sudden announcement. It didn't come like, he had announced before the start of the tour that this is his last tour, last test match, last series. All these were not, this came out of the blue. So obviously he's taken a call on the, what, in many ways, to what may have transpired on the series itself. I mean, he's been a fabulous player for India. He's been, in my opinion, amongst the biggest match winners for India in this century, certainly. Apart from maybe a Dhoni and a Kohli or a Rohit Sharma, you can't think of too many others, or Jadeja maybe. But I think, I agree with Charu for what he's saying. Apart from this series, there's not much he has to look forward to. Even if India qualifies for the WTC final, remember, in 2023 when we played Australia at the Oval, he wasn't picked for that match. After that, you have got 5 test matches to be played in England, where he's been largely kept out of the playing 11. So if he's not part of the test series here, there's nothing to look, because he's not, he was a white ball specialist at one point in time, but he's out of the white ball formats for a while now, for at least a year or more than a year. So I think all these have played on his mind. He's 38 years old. He's also played 106 test matches. It's not that he's been, something which has happened after 25, 26 test matches and he's 28 years old. He's 38 years old. So all these things have, I think, obviously played on his mind. But the decision has been sudden. And maybe there is something that we need to learn from him or hear from him that will help us understand why he took that decision so abruptly.
Okay, let's now get into the meat of the conversation. Not to say that we've done and dusted with Ashwin, but the fact is, viewers, there's still 2 more games to play, and those can determine whether we make it to the World Test Championship. And it's important, therefore, to focus on what's going wrong and what we can do right. Atul Vasan, the bowling, it appears, lacks depth. Bumrah is, of course, this magician, especially down under. But after him, there seems to be a little bit of a dearth of quality. I don't know. I would like your views on that. The batting, the middle order lacks staying power. Now, is that a factor of age? Again, people who are sort of past their sell-by date, or is it just, the T20 format, etc., all sort of, coming together and making people more cavalier?
When there's an expiry date on even a medicine, it's not that it harms you. It's just that it's not potent enough. So you carry on with it, even if you take it. So in that context, I think we all know, if you see the averages, and I know who you're talking about, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. But I feel that in Australia, especially what happened in India when we lost 3-0, it was a black swan moment. This thing was a curveball nobody expected. And I think that also added to Ashwin's exit also. But having said that, just this batting lineup, KL Rahul suddenly has become the messiah, WG Grace. 3 test matches ago, he was struggling to get in the team. So suddenly what happened, because Rohit Sharma is an opener and he comes into a 6 after Rishabh Pant. So there is something which doesn't sit okay with me, because, you have to just take the bull by the horn. And if he fails at the top, I don't mind. But it's been 13 innings since he has not scored a 50, and Virat's average. But Virat and Rohit are these, optics that we also need, because they are part of the think tank. And all these younger players will actually do better. But you can't rely on these players just to be there as show ponies and not contribute. And I know that these are great players, but there comes a time when, these things happen. And they also know that. But this is a series, and they will actually do as much as they can. But the team is actually feeding off them just being there.
Okay, Ayaz Memon, where do you come in on this debate?
I think the poor form of Virat and Rohit is actually becoming a drag on the Indian team. Having said that, let's look at both the teams, and both teams seem to have similar problems. The Australian bowling has done extremely well. The pace trio, India's bowlers have done well. Bumrah has been outstanding, well supported by Siraj and Akashdeep. It's the batting of both teams. Australia is as much in turmoil. If you look, they've had changes made in their teams. Their top 3 or 4 are not clicking. Even Steve Smith, despite 100, like Virat's 100 at Perth, has not got the big scores expected of him. You take away Travis Head, the Australian batting lineup looks actually mediocre and playing at home. So both teams are facing this crisis of the batsmen not delivering. But looking at it from India's point of view, I think these two big guns, Rohit and Virat, have to start firing. If you want to win the series, I think Brisbane, in a sense, we were lucky that the rain kind of washed off a lot of play when Australia had the advantage. But now things are level. And if they regroup quickly enough, I think India have a chance of getting past the post and making it a hat-trick of wins in Australia, a test series with. That would be fantastic. But for that, I think apart from KL Rahul and some brave batting by Jadeja and Akashdeep and Bumrah, they need these two big guns to fire. Both of them are on the wrong side of 30. Obviously, the pressure is telling on them from a physical and a mental standpoint of playing the rigors of cricket, but also the pressure of expectation. And this is where I feel champion cricketers need to stand up and deliver. Virat has an outstanding record in Australia. Rohit, not so much. He's got a modest record. But both of them are batsmen that Australia would like to keep subdued if India is not to be resurgent and win the series. I think the batting of both teams is holding the key to how this series will pan out, where the outcome will lead, whether Australia will be winning the series or India.
But Charu Sharma, look, it's not just about this series. If you look at Kohli, over the last 4 years in tests, he's got an average of 16%. So there's a problem there, isn't there?
Well, if you mean an average of 16, not percent so much.
16,
but
yeah.
Sure.
It was runs. Per innings.
Right. But, somewhere I feel that we are expecting a very unholy level of consistency. It doesn't happen in any sport, anywhere, perhaps not even in life. So to expect these guys to suddenly sort of turn a switch on and suddenly start performing is not going to happen. They've seen everything that the world of cricket has to offer. If they can't succeed now in Australia, something is quite wrong with the way they're approaching the game, or mentally, or just physically, or whatever it is. And it's really up to these two guys that we've talked about, Sharma and Kohli, to say, well, enough is enough. But, it's a prestigious tour. They would like to go off on a bit of a high. They don't want to just sort of fizzle away into the sunset. They want to ride with a couple of big scores. So they're still there. But there's so much talent in India. I mean, there's so much depth and there's so much hunger, so many other youngsters that really, I don't think we'll be missing too many people too long in the world of cricket as we go along in the next few decades, at least. So, it's their value right now is psychological. If they go early, as they have been with the batting, then it's quite likely that the opposition, the Australians in this case, suddenly feel, gosh, we've got this one because the big two are out. But the others are, they can rise to the occasion. Gill hasn't had a good series at all. Of course, he missed the first one. So there are plenty of other people who can bat well too. We should just be pushing this kind of unfair expectation on these two, saying that, well, if you don't score, then we don't make it because Jasprit won the first test himself. Just a quick analysis about what I think Ayaz was saying. The two teams are not too different at this point in time. They're perhaps the two best in the world. Australia have to have the advantage because they're playing at home. And if it weren't for Travis Head, I think India would have been, 50-50 right now. We were lucky with the third test and rain. But even now, ostensibly, possibly, we can win the series. And if we do that, then the discussion would be a little awkward, wouldn't it? Where we're trying to say that, there's lots of trouble in the Indian test team, but there isn't, because you win the series again in Australia, which potentially can happen. Yes, it's time for these two to perhaps think beyond their own careers and say, well, there's so many others waiting in the line, we should just say goodbye. A series such as this can hasten that process, but we're a little loath to drag down our heroes. So, I mean, if they decide to stay a little longer, then I think people will say, well, it's their decision. They've done so much for the country. Let's leave it to them. I do think that the selectors need to be and the board itself, the selectors really, is their job, need to be a little more ruthless. When will that happen in India? I don't know. Maybe the whole nation or the attitude will change in a decade or two.
Which one of the selectors you think will be ruthless? Can you name all the selectors? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's
Atul,
actually, that is a very good question. Who will be ruthless? But before you get into that, and there is some conversation to be had about perhaps the way the selectors have sort of said that, look, we always leave it now to the players to decide. I don't know if that's the best approach, but Atul Vasan, Gill and Pant, very contrasting styles. But look, we wouldn't be having this conversation if at least, look, we have a 6-member, top order, and 4 of them are not actually delivering. If you really look at the numbers, Pant sort of comes in, he sort of flays out and, shows us what he's capable of, then sort of loses the plot. Erratic is the word, lack of application is another. What's going on here? I mean, is he just scared of does he have the skills, first of all, to play the longer, more patient innings?
I am shocked you're asking these questions, because with this erratic and impulsive style of his, he has won many matches. And I think he has earned this leverage that he can play like what he actually does. Because, if you can't walk the talk, then you'll be out of the team. But I think his role is different now because he's been given a role which is not suited for him. And he's coming to bat where we are basically struggling. But we have found a couple of good players. Nitish is there. And, I think going forward, we've got a lot of players. India can make 2 teams and we'll still be having the same record. I can tell you that. But this is the passion with the names and these accolades and these figures, statistics that we love in India, because I remember a time when India used to lose all the matches, used to be happy with the draw. And I used to just wait for Gavaskar's 100. That was my only aim in Test cricket. But that era is gone. And I think when you're playing Australia, and Australia is weak this time. If you say after 3rd Test match we're 1-all, we should take it with both hands. So I think going forward, I'm just hoping that no more any of the players doesn't come back during the series, and Bumrah gets ample rest.
Yeah, no. So I mean, let's talk a little bit about Pant and Gill. Fair enough. Sometimes you have to ask the shocking questions to begin a conversation. But I mean, you come down 4 down, the match is not lost. You still have about 80, 90 on the board. And it's not me, but some of the commentators who said that, look, if he had just applied himself, he'd done some of the hard work, got his eye in, and then goes for this sort of, mad hoik and gets out. Now, at some point, you've got to ask your more experienced player. He's been around now for a few years. Of course, injury did play a bit of a role. That, look, you have a responsibility greater than just constantly living up to your image of, what the fans expect of you or your selectors do, etc. I don't know.
No, because I'll tell you, because you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you take this out of his game, then he won't be the star he is. He won't be, what he has done so far and achieved. He's got 590s, can you imagine? And for a wicketkeeper, what he has done is amazing. So I think you can't ask him to be like this and then expect him to win you matches the way he does.
And what about Gill?
Oh, Gill is class, fact. I think we should not be asked. I think this is sometimes, for some people, we are asking this question too late. And for some of them, we're asking this question too early.
Okay, interesting. Any other thoughts, Ayaz Memon?
Yes, I mean, Rahul, I just wanted to kind of jump in here, and I agree with what Atul is saying. But I also want to highlight that when you look at Virat Kohli, he rose to, his stature went from a very good player to a great player on the 2014-15 tour of Australia, when he was around the same age that Pant and Gill are now, 25, 26. That's when he rose to that stature. And there are many such examples, when you look at the 1978-77 tour, when, Gavaskar and Vishwanath and Vengsarkar went to Australia, they made runs, and you rise in esteem on the global circuit. Now, this is an opportunity for Gill, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Pant, and all these players. We all know, I don't think it is hidden from the dressing room that Rohit and Virat are struggling. They're struggling for runs. Their experience, their rich experience, their outstanding record still makes them invaluable, but they are struggling. So it's time for the others to rise to the occasion. And that's why it's a collective thing. I think that for Pant to play differently now, as many commentators who said he should have been patient and shown some, been circumspect, there were equal number who said he should go and play his natural game. Now, what is he supposed to do? I think he should play his natural game. He's won matches because this is the way he plays. For Gill, who's a little more orthodox, he has to settle down, play the long innings. So there is a bit of a mix and match that has to go on. But collectively, these guys need to, they've got a splendid opportunity. I agree with Atul. After three test matches, if it is 1-1, you'll take that with both hands. And you're heading into, unfortunately, Ashwin is not there at Sydney, which will help spinners. But hey, you've got, Jadeja, you've got Washington Sundar, and you've got Bumrah in prime form. So you hope to still try and win, but the batting, they have to provide the runs for the bowlers to defend.
Okay, so, Charu Sharma, you used the word hunger, and let me bring in an equation. Hunger plus talent equals creating an opportunity or seizing an opportunity. Is the hunger lacking? Perhaps these cricket coming into the bank, we have some other little formats here and there. Fine, it's okay. It's okay, it's fine. Even if we get dropped, we've got a safety net.
Well, I would never argue against the pride of performance because these guys know that they're only as good as their performance. So regardless of what you've achieved in the world of sport, it's always the last couple of matches or performances that are remembered most of all. So I really wouldn't talk about any taking the foot off the pedal as far as the seniors are concerned. And the youngsters, of course, are very hungry anyway. So they would be the last people to compromise a bit on trying to star. Just a very quick note on Gill and Pant again. Pant, remember, is an all-rounder. All of a sudden, we've forgotten that, the wicket-keeper is now meant to be a frontline batsman and a wicket-keeper. I think as long as he's doing a good job wicket-keeping, I think we need to give him a little leeway with his batting, and he's done very well. I think there's enough said about his match-winning abilities. Gill is the one in a little bit of trouble, but he's so silken, I call him still Gill. It's only a matter of time before he comes up with a big knock because he is a long-form batsman as well. In Australia, it's very important to remember that they are largely bowling pitches or pitches that help particularly faster bowlers, not the spinners so much. So on a tour of Australia, the Indian bowlers too are likely to be bigger stars than the batsmen who might be under more trouble or more pressure. So I wouldn't even talk about, I mentioned earlier, I repeat myself, that India might even win the series still because they have the personnel. And then it'll be a completely different discussion. Right. But all of them need to come together. I think the bowlers will truly enjoy the rest of the two matches as well. Akashdeep is one of the most accurate bowlers I've seen in a very long time. He was unlucky in the first innings, did a little better in the second because they were going for some quick runs. I think he, Siraj and Bumrah have the capacity, and with a little bit of spin to add to them and maybe Nitesh, to continuously trouble the Aussies as well. And we might have the last laugh, regardless of whether Sharma and Kohli score or the other four score.
Atul Vasan, what do they need to do when they go into the MCG?
Send Cheteshwar Pujara there because we need some ugly, dirty batting, to last 5 days. In spite of the rain, we were about to finish the match on the third day. So this is not great. Nobody is capable of just batting dirty and not look glamorous, not get the advertisements and not even get an IPL contract, but get the job done. So we have to develop these players, and also just in the larger context, I don't want to dwell too much into this series and what has happened, but senior players should tell the succession plan. They should be clear with the selectors. They can't do this. They should tell, this is my plan, this is what I want to do. Because the selectors will have to plan in such a way. And they can't just be, whimsical and just say, okay, now's the time. And then we also, because of the record, we'll still, pray them and we'll build temples with them. But this is not right. Ultimately, this is a team sport. And I think all the senior players, they should sit down and tell the succession plan, what they want to do, where they want to go, and what is their plan.
Ayaz Memon, closing thoughts.
Yes, I just want to add to what Atul is saying, but I'll also, kind of turn it around on its head a bit. I think the selectors, they also need to stop, and the BCCI needs to be, they need to stop being fanboys. Ultimately, this job of the selectors is to pick the best playing squad, and appoint coaches and captains who will pick the best players. And then the BCCI's job is to ensure that you have an ethos or a culture which looks at excellence and at winning, and not saying, how great you are, for you can keep playing forever. So succession plan, players revealing what they want to do is one thing. The other is also, till they reveal, you can't keep waiting, You also have to be proactive. You have to step in. I think this, it's a two-way thing. You can't just dislodge great achievers after a couple of failures or even 10 matches that you failed because you've done it for 15 years and you brought laurels. to yourself and the country and the team. But there must be a method or a culture, as I mentioned, where this honesty and frankness is becoming is used to ensure that there is a sense of continuity at a level of excellence which the team requires. I just want to add here that Test cricket actually is in great turmoil. When I say turmoil, I mean topsy-turvy results are happening everywhere. Pakistan lost to Bangladesh at home. Bangladesh lost to South Africa at home. India lost to New Zealand at home. New Zealand lost to England at home. So all kinds of things are happening, and therefore one shouldn't be just alarmed at the results. But I think right now there is an opportunity for India to just turn the narrative of the series around. 1-1 going into the fourth test, there's still an opportunity for the series to be won, for some of the players who we've been critical about to come good, and obviously for the youngsters to lay out the path for the future.
Well, we leave it at the glorious uncertainties of cricket, as Ayaz Memon has said. Maybe, viewers, the glorious uncertainties will kick in and Australians will wonder what hit them at home. I'll leave it at this, viewers. It's been a great conversation with these three gentlemen as always. Thank you very much for watching.